welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and I would not be surprised if you were a little bit surprised yourself right now, because I just posted a reading roundup yesterday. However, this is the last day of February, and tomorrow is the start of March Mystery Madness. So I am clearing the decks. I have read a few books in the last week. I have finished a book that I have been reading for 2 months. So I wanted to talk about these books, clear the decks, and start March fresh. For those of you who are participating in March Mystery Madness, I'm planning to do a video every day. It's going to be great. And so yeah, I just wanted to have everything done, complete, and ready to go for March. So that's why you are getting already another reading roundup. I read A Spoonful of Murder by J.M. Hall. This was a really, really fun mystery. This was cozy-ish, I would say. It's set in Yorkshire, which I love, and the main characters are 3 retired elementary school teachers, primary school teachers. And I read this for my In Real Life Mystery Book Club. The theme of the month for February was Senior Sleuths. And so I thought recently retired teachers would fit that prompt really well. And this was just really, really fun. So the 3 of these colleagues, ex-colleagues, they meet once a week for coffee and just to chat. And they're not best friends or anything, but they work together for years. And so they just like to keep up that, that acquaintance, that friendship. And when they're out for coffee one day, they meet another ex-colleague and that ex-colleague's daughter, and they all have coffee together. And they start to become a little bit concerned. This other ex-colleague that they called Topsy appeared to be maybe experiencing some memory problems. It seemed like she was just having some issues. And so these women decided that they need to make more of an effort to see her more often. And then the next week, she is found dead. And there are some slightly mysterious circumstances, although everybody seems to be comfortable saying that she just muddled up her medication and that's why she died. But the 3 of them just start to ask some questions. And I really liked how he wrote these as amateur sleuths, because they didn't, insert themselves into an investigation, and they didn't, run around willy-nilly talking to people. They didn't even actually make a concerted, conscious effort for the 3 of them to investigate, but they talked with each other and they asked questions and they shared their concerns. And then often they would actually just go off on their own and say, this one thing is bothering me, maybe I'll talk to this person about that. And so I just really liked how that worked. And we also got a bit of a glimpse into each of their personal lives, not a huge amount, but a little bit. And yeah, I really did enjoy this. I liked the way it was written. I liked the setting. The mystery I figured out. It wasn't all that complicated, but I don't think that was the point. And so yeah, I just really enjoyed it. There was a couple things here that I marked that I wanted to share with you. First of all, she looked in the window of the bookshop, hoping to distract herself. There was a big display. March, the month of murder, with an array of dramatic looking titles. How does J.M. Hall know about March Mystery Madness? Isn't that amazing? This book takes place in March, and it would be perfect actually to read for March Mystery Madness. And then there was one more section. This is how you write about a mystery in your own book without spoiling it. It drives me crazy when authors unnecessarily spoil another mystery in their book. It was like the first time she'd read Murder on the Orient Express. The solution was, in retrospect, so obvious, yet leading up to the denouement, she had absolutely no idea. It really and truly had never crossed her mind. Or rather, it had crossed her mind in a faintly academic way, devoid of any import, in the same way it had crossed her mind Rod might have an affair, or this week's lottery ticket be a winner. But it had kept on crossing her mind and gone right out on the other side without stopping. That's how you talk about another mystery in your book without spoiling it. Anyway, I did enjoy A Spoonful of Murder by J.M. Hall. For that same mystery book club, I also read Blotto, Twinks, and the Ex-King's Daughter by Simon Brett. Now, hang on a second. Okay, no. Senior Sleuths was a different theme for a different month. The theme was actually the 20s, and we can interpret that however we wanted. This book took place in the 2020s, so it counted. This book took place in the 1920s, and so therefore it also counted. This is the first book in the Blotto and Twinks series, and this was utter ridiculousness, and I loved it. It was just ridiculous, but I loved it so much. If you go into it with the right mindset, knowing that it's very much tongue-in-cheek, and it's supposed to be silly and ridiculous, then you will probably enjoy it. I'm just going to read from the back because I think that's the best way to explain this book. It's that glorious period between the two world wars, and the excited king of Middle Europa is celebrating with a visit to Taster Towers, the ancestral home of the Dukes of Taster. When the ex-king's daughter is kidnapped, noblesse obliges Blotto, the Duke's brave and handsome son, to drive off to the rescue. Sadly, he is rather staggeringly stupid. With a nickname like Blotto, what could one expect? But his sister, Twinks, got all the family brains, and she is inclined to be helpful. And in more good news for the purloined princess, Blotto's devoted valet is coming along for the ride. Plus, they've got a really swell car. So you can tell from the description kind of what kind of an adventure mystery you're going to get. And that's actually one thing that I really enjoyed. The first half of the book felt very much like a classic country house mystery. And then the second half of the book, we took off on the adventure part. And it was just so much fun. So Blotto is the Right Honorable Devereux Lyminster, the second son of the Duke. And his sister is Lady Honoria Lyminster, and her name is Twinks. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun with this. I'm totally going to continue on with the series because they're short, quick reads and just really very entertaining. There was a couple parts in here that I wanted to share with you, including the very first paragraph. It's frightfully awkward, mater, but I'm afraid there's a dead body in the library. Not now, Blotto. We have guests. And then this part, they debated for a long time on whether or not they should call the police, and then they finally do call the police, and we meet Chief Inspector Trumbull. Chief Inspector Trumbull had not been at the front of the queue when the intellect was handed out. Indeed, he appeared not to have been in the same county, but that did not prevent him from rising through the ranks of his chosen profession. Indeed, in those days, for anyone in that profession to have shown intelligence or originality would have been a positive disqualification. The role of the police was to do a lot of boring legwork and paperwork, to trail up investigatory cul-de-sacs, to be constantly baffled and dutifully amazed when an amateur sleuth revealed the solution to a murder mystery. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time with Blotto and Twinks, and I'm going to definitely read more from this series. Okay, my two picks from the vault for February were Nights of Rain and Stars by Maeve Binchy and The Thomas Street Horror by Raymond Paul. Now, unfortunately, this one was a DNF for me. I read about 50 pages, and the writing was really good. Maeve Binchy is definitely a good writer. It was just not my kind of book. It's just not the kind of book that I read, and it was, you know, over 300 pages, and I just thought, you know what? I know what I like. And so I gave it a shot, and I just realized that it wasn't for me. So I will be passing this book along. However, it is out of the vault. I gave it a shot, so that's a win in my books. The other book that I read was, this one I actually did read, was The Thomas Street Horror by Raymond Paul. This is a fictionalized account of an actual murder that took place in New York City in 1836. On April 10th, 1836, a lovely young prostitute named Helen Jewett was hacked to death in her own bed. And like in this book, the accused went to trial and was acquitted. But the real killer in the real case, they never figured out who actually did it. And in this book, he takes a stab at solving the case and saying who he thinks the real killer was. This was entertaining. It took a long time to actually get to the murder, which kind of surprised me. The entire part one of the book was just introducing our main character, who is a young journalist, and some of his adventures. Some of them, of course, became important for what followed. But I did think, for my preferences, I would have preferred the murder to have happened a little bit earlier. There was, 88 pages before we get to the murder. However, there were some fascinating things in here that I wanted to share with you. First of all, at the beginning, there is a quote from John Dickson Carr, who is a Golden Age author famous for Locked Room or Impossible Crime mysteries. He says this: "Let the story be arranged like this. Let the evidence not all be thrown at us in a lump with comments beforehand, but let it grow up as the story unfolds, so that each new turn is a surprise to us as it was to those who saw it happen. Let there be no nods or elbow joggings from the author, no hints, no speculations, but let the clues be scattered shrewdly for the reader to find if he cares to do so. Let there be half a dozen persons, each suspected in turn, and each in turn proved innocent. Let there be a spice of terror, of dark skies and evil things. And at intervals over our pipes and glasses, let us discuss the evidence." I loved that. I thought that was fantastic. And then the author says this: "The events portrayed in the pages which follow are drawn from and based on documented fact." So I start reading. It is the winter of 1835. Our main character is looking at a newspaper, The Sun, and he is reading through some of the liners and advertisements, and he gets to this one. 6 cents reward. Run away from the subscriber on the 15th of November. Charles Eldridge, an indentured apprentice to the cigar-making business, about 16 years of age, 4 feet high, broken back. Had on, when he left, a round jacket and blue pantaloons. The above reward and no charges will be paid for his delivery to John Dibben, number 354, Bowery. I think that is probably an actual advertisement liner taken from a newspaper in 1835. My guess is the author was looking at the newspapers and just pulled a couple, because he lists a few of those. But what I love about that is that this is the first time ever I have seen my maiden name in a book. I love that. So Dibben is my maiden name, and I was just super excited to see it. And I'm going to believe that John Dibben actually did live in New York in 1835. I love it so much. There is a plan here of the murder house. And then on the next page, that was the yard, and this is inside the house. So yeah, this was an entertaining read, and I'm glad I finally got to it because this has been on my shelves for quite a while. Okay, I also read Murder at the Majestic Hotel by Clara McKenna. This is the newest in the Stella and Lindy series. This is a historical mystery series set in the Edwardian time period, and I love this series. Stella and Lindy are great characters. Stella is an American. She's from Kentucky, and she is over in England. And I don't want to say too much because this is the fourth in the series, and so I don't want to spoil things. But normally, the books are set in Hampshire, in the New Forest area, and I love that setting for this series. But in this book, they've gone to York, and so they're very much fish out of water, and I love the descriptions of York. There is also a lot about the chocolate industry in this story, which I found very, very entertaining, and the mystery was really good as well. So yeah, I was really excited to read this and to continue on in the Stella and Lindy series. I also read the newest Louise Penny, World of Curiosities, and I loved it. I loved it. I just love this series so much, and this one was fascinating. There is a hidden room is discovered above the bookshop in the village, and that just kicks off a lot of very interesting things that happen in Three Pines. I love that we get some history of Gamache and Jean-Guy. We learn about their very first case together, which has been hinted at throughout the series, but she really dives into it in this one, and I really, really enjoy that. She also mentions and talks about the massacre at the Polytechnic in Montreal in 1989. I remember that. I was in grade 9, and it was all over the news. It was such a shocking event. 14 women were killed. I think about 14 other women were injured. It was a shocking event, and I thought that she handled it very respectfully. And it was a very interesting, she had a really interesting way of including it in the story, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, A World of Curiosities. And then the book that I have been reading for 2 months, this is a buddy read that I did with Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes. We read Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. And I'm going to say this, I loved this book. I loved this book. I want to actually do a dedicated video to this book because there is a lot that I want to say. It's gonna have to wait till April though, because March is already, all my videos are already planned for March because of March Mystery Madness. So stay tuned to April for my dedicated video to Dombey and Son. But for right now, I can say I loved this book. I loved the buddy reading experience with Mitzi. We had some great conversations. And there were two things especially I noticed when reading this book about Charles Dickens. His use of imagery in this story was fantastic, and his use of repetition was fascinating. There are actually 2 chapters in this book specifically that I want to dive into and do a little bit of research on and look a little more closely at, because his use of repetition in those 2 chapters particularly was really interesting. So Dombey and Son, loved it. Loved my buddy read with Mitzi, and it has been a very long time since I've read a Dickens, and so I'm super glad that I read this, and I am definitely going to be reading more from him. Okay, there you have it. That is what I have been reading recently. Let's chat in the comment section. Have you read any of these books? I would love to talk with you about them. Are you interested in seeing a dedicated video to Dombey and Son? Let me know that as well. and I will see you for another video very soon because March Mystery Madness starts tomorrow. Bye.